In this video, we're going to talk about DNS and how to get a website spun up as quickly as possible. DNS is a technical topic in the digital marketing realm. If you want to be a DevOps person or a fully fledged marketing engineer or a full stop shop agency, you're going to need to understand DNS. In my career, DNS knowledge is what separates the high performers from everybody else. The high performing companies from the other companies. Your clients and customers will never understand it. And sometimes even your coworkers may not fully grasp everything that has to do with DNS, so you will have to be the go-to person. DNS is basically everything that keeps your site live. Today we're going to talk about 4 things. Number 1, your domain name. Number 2, your web hosting provider. Number 3, your name servers. Number 4, your DNS zone. These are the 4 main pieces to keep any website up and spinning. Let's take Mary. She wants to start a website for her cat because the internet can always use more cats. Now, what's the first thing you think about when you want to start a website? Well, like Mary, you're going to think that you need a name. What are you going to call your website? A name for your website, or actually a domain name, is what you're thinking about. A domain name is the Google and Google.com or the Facebook and Facebook.com. So Mary decides she wants to use the name Marryskittnes. However, now she needs to know where does she actually purchase her website's name. Most people in this situation will type into Google, how do I get a website name or how do I get a domain name? Google will then direct you to what's known as a registrar. Google itself actually is a registrar, but there are other ones as well, such as GoDaddy, Namecheap, just to name a few. Sometimes you can find domains for as little as $5. However, usually domains are around $12. For more desirable domain names, the price can be very high. There are some places you can find cheap domains like Namecheap, but mainly across the board they're going to be about $12. These companies are going to try and upsell you, so be wary of that. Typically the only upsell that I ever recommend to my clients is the Whois privacy. This will keep all of your information private once you purchase your domain name. If you don't mind spending the extra $8 to $10 for your domain name, then I would suggest purchasing your domain name from wherever you're going to host your website. Places that offer domain names typically offer website hosting. They're using that as a way to get you in the door. So they will sell you a domain name and then they will offer to host your website as well. This is what I always recommend for beginners because it will make setting up everything we're going to talk about in this video extremely easy because they will have done it all for you. However, if you are going to host your domain name and your website in different places, then you're going to really need to understand what we're going to talk about in this video. DNS is what is actually going to keep your site alive, and if they're in different places, things need to be configured correctly, and so if you don't actually understand what we're about to talk about, your site's not going to work. So let's talk about web hosting now. Just like domain names, there are a lot of options for web hosting. Places like DigitalOcean can offer web hosting for as low as $5 a month. However, if you're going to go with a DigitalOcean, you better be really good at server management because you're going to be doing everything yourself. That's why it's so cheap. You're basically only paying for the bandwidth that you use. That's why it's so cheap, because you're basically only paying for the amount of internet, quote unquote, that you use. Otherwise, you're going to need to know how to do all the server management yourself. For beginners, I typically advise to go with either GoDaddy or Google, because they're going to make it extremely easy for you to host a website, and they will do a lot for you as well. Probably GoDaddy more than Google at this point, so if this is the first website you're ever setting up, I would suggest going with GoDaddy. If you're a more advanced user, I would suggest something like WP Engine. So, back to Mary. She's at Google and she's searched her domain name, Marryskittnes, and she has found it for $12. She decides to purchase Marryskittnes for $12. After this, Google prompts her to decide which name servers she wants to use. So we're number 3 now, name servers. Name servers are servers that are specialized in directing the internet traffic to your domain name. Basically, name servers tell the internet traffic where your website is. This is why I suggest hosting your domain name and your website in the same place, because if you don't, then you have to use custom name servers. You're going to have to reconfigure the name servers of where your domain is to point to where your website is. An example of a name server looks something like this: ns1.domaincontrol.com, ns2.domaincontrol.com. Those are GoDaddy's name servers, by the way. So for example, if she had purchased her domain at Google, but had her website hosted with GoDaddy, then when Google asked her what name servers she wanted to use, she would need to put in those name servers with her domain at Google to point to her website hosting at GoDaddy. I know it's getting a little complicated, but we're almost there. We have one more thing to go over, and that is your DNS zone. This is the last piece, and also a very important piece. It is the most technical piece of all of them, I would say, and the most difficult to understand, but also the most important. Your DNS zone is the switchboard of your internet traffic. Your DNS zone is the hub of all the things that you're doing on the internet with your website. A DNS zone can do many things, but the most basic and important thing that it does is it has the IP address of your website. Your DNS zone can do many things, but the main thing a DNS zone does is host the IP address of your actual website. Your IP address is where the server is, the physical server is where your website lives. So let's follow the process. Mary types in Marryskittnes.com. The internet traffic looks up that domain name. Then it lands on Google. Google tells it, hey, check out the name servers. It goes down to look at the name servers. Then the name servers tell the internet traffic where the DNS zone is. So then it flies over to the DNS zone and looks up the IP address. Finally knowing where the website is, it travels to the website, and voila, you have the website now on your browser. Side note, there is one more step usually, and that is to actually add your domain to your website. But that's a topic for another video. I hope this made sense to you. Let's go over it one more time. 1. Your domain name is what shows up in the top bar of your browser. The Google to google.com, or the Marryskittnes to marryskittnes.com. Your web host is where your website actually lives. People provide servers that host websites, and that's what your web host is. Your name server tells internet traffic where the IP address for your website is. Your DNS zone is what actually holds the information, such as your IP address, to where your website is. So now you understand the 4 main pieces to getting your website live. I hope you found this helpful. Please leave any questions in the comment section, and I'll see you next time.